when I look at the linebacking spot, if you just put Reddick here, if you put Kazir over here, and whatever you decide to do in the middle, whether it's TJ Edwards or Nakobe Dean, I feel much better about that unit than I do with what could possibly happen in the wide receiving position. And I do believe the wide receiving position has the ability to be talked about across the league all season long. But I still, until I can see him do it, I have my concerns about the guy who's playing pitch and catch with these wide receivers.
So to the Eagles, and Barrett brought this up in our pre-show, which I love, ranking position groups and who, you know, from best to, well, I mean, we do like the top 5, whatever the best 5 are. But it's interesting when you look at, like, to me, once you get past the first group, then there's debate there. And you're debating certain positions. We haven't debated with the Eagles in a long time. So, I mean, look, I think we would probably all agree that offensive line would fall into the first spot. Would you guys agree with that?
Number one, totally.
Yeah, I think they're the best offensive line in the NFL.
I've said that. I've been on record saying that the best offensive line in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
the best.
That, to me, that part of it is fascinating because the depth that they have, even with a guy like Dillard, who's still here, is crazy. I mean, teams don't have they have maybe a better second unit in a lot of places than teams have as starters.
Yep.
In their place. That's how deep they are at offensive line. And they have the best coach in the league at that position. So, you know, the offensive line just destroys any other team collectively.
Collectively and depth-wise also.
Yeah.
They can go too deep.
Yep. Offensive line was number one on my list, hands down, because of the versatility. And when one guy falls by the wayside, you look at so many teams, when they lose a starter, there's a significant drop-off in the replacement. Not with this group, you know, and it starts with the guy who coaches them up in Jeff Stoutland. One of the best in the game, if not the best, in terms of making his guys more versatile and ready to play at any given position at any given time. And you know, you look at some of the guys that he has, and you're thinking, would these guys be able to survive and thrive in other teams' environments? I think that some of these guys will get lost in the shuffle. But here, they're viable because of the way they're taught. You know, you come in here, and even a kid they just drafted, Juergens, we assume he's going to be the heir apparent to Kelsey, but they're also training him to be a guard as well in this league. And you never know when he may have to step in. Now, they're deep in guard right now, but you just never know when he might have to step in and play either one of the guard spots. And, you know, again, that's kudos to the guy who takes pride in what he does in terms of coaching up offensive linemen and Stoutland.
Yeah, you look at Jay Cox. That's exactly what he said. He said,
yeah,
Herbig should have never been let go. Well, they can afford to let Herbig go simply because they have guys sitting back that are just waiting. You know, Coyote Awusuke. I mean, he's just as good as a starter. You know, what's his name? Opeta. Just as good as a starter. So, you know, they have so much depth.
Driscoll.
He
I'm
can
just
guard and
amazed
tackle.
How much better they get. Like, we always talk about the draft and develop, and the second D is often overlooked, but the developmental part is. I mean, Jordan Mailata, is there a better example? The guy never played football.
Yeah, and
he's a premier starting left tackle in the NFL now.
Just signed a $60 million contract.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about when they first drafted him in the 7th round, we're thinking, what is Howie Roseman doing here?
Yeah,
but see, at that time, they had enough depth on that line that they could have a project and not hurt the continuity of what they were doing along the offensive line, and they were patient with him. And look at him now; he's being mentioned as one of the best left tackles in the game now.
Yep.
On top of that, think about the way they've been able to overcome injuries.
Yep.
Go back to the Super Bowl year.
Yeah.
Jason Peters goes down. Big V steps in, right?
Yep.
And plays great.
Signed
last
a $50 million contract
with Detroit. He got paid.
Detroit. Yep.
On top of that, even last year, we talk about, man, the Eagles were really fortunate. They didn't have any injuries. Well, they had some injuries. I mean, they lost Brandon Brooks, which
that was huge.
Was a big deal, right? And Lane wasn't there in the beginning. Lane was dealing with his mental health and all those kind of things. But, you still were able to just plug guys in. I mean, all of a sudden Dickerson is ready to go. Part of that is he's a talented guy, but part of that is they had him ready to go. And they were able to plug guys in, and it still worked. And
emerge as the top rushing offense in the National Football League with a patched up offensive line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, man? Like, I talked about on my show yesterday. This may be the last time this coaching staff is a complete coaching staff, from the year before. Because at this point, I'm looking at the stream. What if Stoutland does leave or he wants to go? I know he's not going to go back to Alabama now, because actually my left guard, when I played, guy played next to me when I was in college, was Eric Wolford. He's now the offensive line coach in Alabama right now. So, at least that job is covered right now. But there were talks that he might have left last year,
right,
and went back to Alabama. So, imagine that. What if Coach Stoutland was to leave?
Yeah, I don't want to imagine that.
Right. Look, the stream said,
can I just stay in my nah, don't tell me those kind of things.
They said I want to sign him to a lifetime contract.
I'm telling you, man.
I would sign Stoutland to the highest contract ever for an offensive line coach in the history of pro football.
Exactly.
Amen. I think the thing the Eagles have going for them is, I don't think he wants the aggravation of being a head coach or maybe even being a coordinator.
True.
I think he's like, I'm making a pretty good living.
He's happy doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm having fun. And I see what those guys have to deal with the media and everything else. I kind of think he's got a little bit of that Jim Johnson in him. Jim Johnson didn't want to be a head coach. He could have.
No.
He didn't want the headache. So
I'm surprised Stoutland didn't leave and go with Doug Peterson down to Jacksonville.
Right.
Because they have such a close relationship. But maybe he was under contract and Eagles weren't going to let him out of his contract.
That's exactly what it is.
I wouldn't let him go. I'd give him a bump and I wouldn't let him go. I'd make sure he's happy, but you're staying here, my man. All right.
Well, there it is, So, if he was the lead, the assistant offensive line coach, man, they probably just give it to him. Roy, was it Isvin? ISP Isvin. If Roy Isvin, became the guy, he's going to teach the exact same way Stoutland does.
Right.
But then I'd have to leave you guys because I'd be his assistant.
You could call it, just do the show during practice.
Yeah, I'm applying right then and there.
Barrett, I don't ever see you coaching in the NFL.
Why is that?
Because you have too many other things that you like to do that would interfere with coaching in the NFL.
You're right.
I don't see you getting up at 5 a.m., getting to the office, studying film, practicing, going through film sessions after practice, and getting home at 9 or 10 o'clock at night every day. I think that would eat away at your livelihood and it would eat away at your personality in the long run.
I couldn't go fishing. I couldn't go boating. I
couldn't work on your motorcycles, couldn't work on your cars, couldn't work on your boat.
Yeah. You're right. You're stuck with me, guys.
Yeah, it's done. That's done. It didn't take much, but that's done.
Stuck with me.
Dang it.
Good job, Derek. You laid that out well. Yes.
Dang it.
All right. So I won't jump on the next one. Because I debated. I have to admit, I debated a little bit on what is second after offensive line is pretty easy. But what's number two? I'll start with you, Barrett. What do you rank as two?
I have to go cornerback. Cornerback's my number two. Just from the three guys that are starting right now, I think they have the best. They have the second best meeting room right now with Slay, Bradbury, and Maddox. They don't go much deeper after that. McPherson's probably in the mix, those guys. But I'm really enamored at what those three guys can do, what they'll be able to do this year, from lining up against number one, number two, and number three receivers.
All right. I think that's a really interesting case, and I didn't think we would be able to make that statement
right
2 months ago, whatever it was. I'm thinking linebacker, maybe not. And actually, you could say that about another position, which we'll get to. But what would you go, Gunner? Who's your number two?
I would have to say defensive line. I think is the second strongest spot on this team. When you look at the wealth of talent and potential they have at the D tackle position, that rotation, Milton Williams, the draft Jordan Davis. And of course you have two pro bowlers in Hargrave and Fletcher Cox in the middle. Then you look on the edges, you got Brandon Graham coming back. You got Sweat on the other side, along with hopefully he reduces his penalty count in Derek Barnett. I just like that rotation. You got D tackles that can move to the outside and rush from the edge. You got defensive ends they will put in the middle and attack from the middle. I think that's the second strongest spot on this team.
Huh?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I didn't. If we said this last year, this is a team that had the second fewest sacks in the NFL. Right? It's crazy, but adding Davis. Getting Brandon back, I think, is gigantic. I think Fletcher Cox will be more motivated because it's essentially a one-year deal. Hargrave's essentially on a one-year deal. I think you're going to see these guys show up. I'm a firm believer in Hassan Reddick in his ability to get, and I'm going to call him a defensive lineman for this purpose, getting to the quarterback, excuse me. I think for all those reasons, and I think they're going to be really good against the run too, which we probably don't talk about or focus on.
Especially with that 50 front they're going to run.
And Barrett, I think they're going to keep. I know they did it last year too, but I think they're going to have the ability, if Jonathan Gannon does this right, to really keep teams off balance, and you're not sure exactly what you're going to be seeing. And not to mention the rotation. You can throw a lot of fresh, arms at it, so to speak, to use a baseball vernacular. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that Jim Schwartz loved about the 17 team is you could throw a lot of different bodies at them. So I like this defensive line a lot. I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do this year, man. And I know a lot of it falls on the coach, but I think the talent's there for sure.
Who's your second team?
No, it is D-line.
Oh, it's D-line too?
Yeah, I concur with the D-line. So I would go O-line, D-line right now. Yep. So let's transition into our third. Derek, you get the first crack at 3.
I really struggled with this one. I was torn between two positions. I was torn between wide receiver and linebacker. And the reason it was hard to make a decision is, well, you have A.J. Brown, but will he be a 1,000-yard receiver with Jalen Hurts throwing him the football? When I looked at the linebacking spot, you have Hassan Reddick, you have Kazir White, you have Nakobe Dean, but my concern is, how is Jonathan Gannon going to deploy them? So there's two big question marks. So when a push came to shove, I'd lean more towards linebacker than wide receiver because we know Devontae Smith is a proven commodity. We know what A.J. Brown's resume states. Beyond that, there's a lot of potential, but there's a big question mark. Will Quez Watkins take his name to the next level? Where's John Hightower fit into the scheme of things? We discussed this earlier in the show. Who rounds out? How much will Pascal? We know Pascal is Sirianni's boy, but again, you have an unproven commodity trying to get him the ball. Will he be able to go through his progressions with all these different pass catchers and make it and keep everybody happy? When I look at the linebacking spot, if you just put Reddick here, if you put Kazir over here, and whatever you decide to do in the middle, whether it's T.J. Edwards or Nakobe Dean, I feel much better about that unit than I do with what could possibly happen in the wide receiving position. And I do believe the wide receiving position has the ability to be talked about across the league all season long. But I still, until I can see him do it, I have my concerns about the guy who's playing pitch and catch with these wide receivers.
I put wide receiver as my number 3.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, cornerback, I'm they're number 2, wide receiver number 3, just because they're so deep. And like I say, my days of questioning Jalen Hurts' ability to go out there. I just need to see it right now.
Right.
But what you have, man, in A.J. Brown, you got a guy that's constantly out there that you have to put defensive attention on.
Yes.
It's going to bring coverage to him. That means you have really good guys like Devontae Smith that will be running wide open, and it shouldn't be that hard to get the ball to him. It shouldn't be that hard to get the ball to a wide open Goddard. It shouldn't be hard to get the ball to those guys. So A.J. Brown just dictates coverage, and where he is exactly where the defense is going to be, and they're going to look to stop him. So it's going to open up the other wide receivers. I'm looking at, Quez just having a breakout season because you can't afford much coverage help with him going over the top. You can't have a safety over the top of him because they're going to be looking to stop A.J. Brown. So I think that, just the mixture that Zach Pascal is going to go nuts in the slot position. He's going to go nuts in the slot position because you can't think that you're going to put a linebacker on him or a safety and think that, he can't beat those guys one-on-one. He had an absolute fabulous camp, man. He had a great camp. And you could just see that he fits in exactly what they want to do from an offensive standpoint.
All right.
I would agree at receiver here. Because I think you have 2 Pro Bowlers, honestly. I think A.J. Brown's already proven. I think Devontae is well on his way. So if you can come out of the chute with 2 starters who I think are Pro Bowlers, and now there's some depth there, and a guy who really knows the system like the back of his hand in Pascal, I don't think he's going to have to, it's not some big learning curve that he just steps in there. He's going to be really good. I think Watkins now with Jalen another year under his belt to be able to figure out how to utilize him a little bit better. That's not a bad foursome, man. I'm not saying they're as good as other. I mean, you look at teams. We've talked about the Vikings a lot and some of the other teams that are loaded at receiver, but that's a good foursome that the Eagles are rolling out there. And then you throw Goddard in there. I know it's cheating a little bit because he's a tight end, but if you play 3 wide out and you go Devontae, AJ, and Quez, and then Dallas Goddard's out there, that's a lot of options for that quarterback, man.
I agree 100% with everything you're saying. I agree 100% with what both of you are saying. But it goes back to my bigger question. Can the quarterback go through his progressions and find the open receiver? Can he hit him in stride and not overthrow? I still have these visions of him overthrowing receivers wide open in the flats or underthrowing them. Can he adapt to a rhythm offense, 1, 2, 3, throw? Will he stay in the pocket a little bit longer to wait for some of these pass catchers to free up and not take off and run? See, and because of his body of work, his limited body of work, these are all viable questions. I got to see it first. Like Barrett just said, I got to see it first. Mm-hmm. I have my reservations about the quarterback, and I'm not knocking him, but this is just a fair objective look at the quarterback position. And when you look at all the national pundits who have weighed in on Jalen Hurts, when you read the comments, they're split down the middle. One side, we believe that he can elevate this game. The other side, Jalen Hurts is a great athlete, but will never be a great quarterback. So the opinions on him are split. And I believe that you could have 2,000-yard receivers in this offense if Jalen Hurts takes his game to the next level. But that word "if" when it comes to him is one of the biggest words in the dictionary right now. Because we won't know. We won't know in training camp. We won't know in preseason. We won't know until he gets into the real deal. And not just the first game coming out against Detroit, but we got to look at this for over a series of 3, 4, 5 games to get a true analysis of, okay, how much Jalen Hurts has improved or has not improved.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, they can have all the talent in the world. If the quarterback can't deliver them the football, none of it matters, right? I mean, to even put the receivers where we're putting them is going under the assumption that the quarterback is going to play well.
True.
And it is a great unknown. It is. You're muted, Bear.
And when you think about a team and building a team, why isn't the quarterback position number 1 or at least, top 3? So there lies the problem. We don't think as highly at that point. It should have been. He should at least been in the top 3, and right now he's not even in my top 5. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm not saying he's that he's not going to be a good quarterback. I'm not saying anything. It's just too many unknowns for it.
Yes.
So
you're right. You're right. I mean, agreed. I think that's you almost have to put an asterisk next to the receivers because they can't throw themselves the ball.
No,
so,
right.
Yeah, it's a little bit tougher. All right, so let's move down to our fourth group. This is where I go corner. To throw Bradbury with Slay and have Avante in the slot, you feel a lot better about your chances than you have in a long time. Yeah,
spoiled.
Yeah, with that group. I mean, that has the potential to be a really good cornerback group if Bradbury bounces back from what was a mediocre to bad year last year on a Giants team that was awful. All of a sudden now, man, you're cooking here. I mean, with those 3, and I think that's a good bunch. That's as good as I felt about the Eagles corners going in a long time that I can remember. So I would put them. They would fall in after receiver for me at number. What are we at? 4? That'd be my 4th. How about you?
Now I get to the D line. That's where I got my D line at number 4. The D line is just like you said, man. They have the ability to be very good, and If Gannon uses them like I think he's going to use them, they're going to run a little more bare front meaning 50 front, meaning 5 essentially D linemen are playing out there to stop the run. The worst down the Eagles had last year was first down. Teams would average like 5 to 6 yards on first down against them, which puts them graded in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 1. You know, when you're a defensive minded coach and you're trying to put the heat on the 3rd down, it's hard to put the heat on them when you're 3rd and 2 as opposed to being 3rd and 10. So when you can go out there in the 50 front, stop the run, and still have corners out there if they do pass that you're comfortable with, that defensive line, man, could be very good for him, man. I mean, you put Davis right over the nose, then you got Hargrave and Cox on the guards. Then on the outside, you might have BG on one side, and then you have Reddick on the other side in a 50 front. That, I mean, you're good to go as far as stopping guys on first down, which will give them a better opportunity to stop on 3rd down when it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, as opposed to being 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2.
Interesting. How about you, Derek? Where are you going next?
I went cornerback by default, and my biggest concern is once you get past the front line guys, there's a significant drop off, and that's my biggest concern. See, when you look at the D line and the O line, you lose a guy here or there, you're still pretty stout in the trenches. When you get to the cornerback spot, if you lose one of those 3 names you just mentioned, then it's, who's the quarterback going to attack now? And as we know, somebody's going to fall by the wayside. I don't think all 3 of these guys are going to play all 17 games. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. Somebody's going to get hurt. What happens after that? On paper, when you look at Bradbury and Darius Slate, I like the fact that they can play more man-to-man now, which allows the front 7 to play more games, to become more of an attacking and unpredictable type front 7 for opposing quarterbacks, whether it's the running game or the passing game. But if Bradbury or Slate fall by the wayside, then you got quarterbacks and offensive coordinators thinking, okay, we're attacking this side of the field, and I think they can do it very efficiently against the second tier for the Eagles secondary. So I had my concerns there. I was torn between the cornerback and the running back position, and I gave it to the cornerback position by default. I like the cornerback position in terms of frontline players a little bit more than I like the running back position. So that's why I went cornerback next.
All right. Where are you going, Barry, for your last?
For my 5th, I'm going with the linebackers.
Okay.
I'm going linebacker position. They could be special, man. They could be special. You know, you got to consider, when have we talked about the linebacker position being a position of strength?
Yep.
It's not since the late and great, wasn't it Jimmy Johnson, the defensive coordinator, that he had the ability to go out there and put Trot out there, Carlos Edmonds. They had some really good linebackers come through.
Michael Kendricks.
Yeah.
So now, we can talk like, all right, from the linebacker position, I think we're finally at a point where now you got guys like TJ Edwards fighting for a position as opposed to just giving it to him going into camp.
Right.
And when you're competing like that, that's when, you're a better team. Because, Sean Bradley is in danger of not making this squad. And he was one of the best special team players. Mm-hmm. But if that's all they could do, hell, they got starters that can do that. So, it's going to be hard for, him to get on the field. You got, the Kobe Dean. Where is he going to be at? He may not be able to get on the field. They got some talent, Davion Taylor. He's starting to come into his own. Now he has to fight to get on the field, man. So it's just nothing's going to be given. You got to work. You got to go out there and show some before you get some reps. So I love that competition. So I say that's why they're my number 5 position.
Mm-hmm. I am a 5 too, and I never thought we'd be having a top 5 position group list and linebacker be included. So I'm thrilled to be even saying it. Look, there's not much more I could say that you guys didn't nail, and Barrett, you didn't just lay out with the linebackers. I think you're right on, and I love the diversity of this group. TJ, what he brought to the table last year, Nakobe Dean, I do think will be an every down linebacker by at least middle of the season. And then Kaiser White, who we don't talk about, another guy who's on a 1-year deal, who's going to want to get paid, who's going to show up big time. I think he's probably pissed off at the deals that weren't out there, and multi-year deals. So I think for all those reasons, this is going to be a good group. And you get the guys in front of them that are going to keep heat off of them. That's what Jordan Davis did for
exactly
Nakobe Dean for all their years at Georgia.
Yeah.
So these guys are going to be able to be free and make some plays without having to shed blockers and guys in front of them. It's an enormous, difference between what we've seen the last couple of years. So yeah, I think this group's going to be fun, man. A lot of fun, in fact. Absolutely. All right, so let's step aside here, and we will we'll keep it rolling here with the Birds and the NFL in general, and we'll get into surprises, because surprises can cut both ways. It can be, wow, this team can take off, nobody's giving me any credit, or I think it's probably we're heading the other way with this group. So we'll get into that. We'll do the AFC and the NFC when we come back. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Pro Action Restoration, if you're not familiar, get yourself familiar, because if you're say you're a homeowner, say you own a business, whatever the case may be, and there's a fire or there's water damage, like the storms that we had early this morning, right? You got some water in your basement or your crawl space, or mold for that matter. You want to get that taken care of, and you want to get it taken care of the right way, the efficient way, and the reasonable way. And Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to help you. I went through it with water damage at my parents' house. They got over there. They cleaned it up real quick. It was reasonably priced. I couldn't have been more happy with the job that they did. They're licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company, by the way, whether it's, again, water or fire or smoke or mold remediation, or you're not really sure if, what's going on, if they can help you. I'm sure they can, but you can give them a call and they will handle it. Trust me when I tell you that. 610-623-3760. That's 610-623-3760. Or you can reach them at proactionrestoration.com, proactionrestoration.com.